In this tutorial we will be modeling a low poly Citroen 400 based on these templates that I will provide, and the model is going to look just like that. We will apply a few materials to it, some emission materials, and we keep it relatively simple. Before we start the project, there are a few things that I want to explain. First of all, I'm going to supply some instructions here with the screencast keys where you can see the mouse button functions plus the keyboard commands. I will also narrate it, but in case my explanation is not as clear, you can always then depend on these instructions here at the bottom right of the 3D view. Another thing that I need to explain is that the standard in modeling an object like a car that is basically a symmetric object that's similar on the left and on the right, you model that along the y-axis, where the x-axis runs from the left to the right, and to the right, as you can see in the widget here, that's the plus x-axis indicators. And the front is usually going this way, which would mean it's the negative y-axis, and the back would go toward the plus y-axis. But in order to do that, we will do the whole modeling process in the orthographic view. So I'm going to click on this negative y-axis in order to look down the front view, and we're going to change our units to under this icon here, the scene icon, to metric, because the template provides metric instructions. So the way we're going to do that is we are going to import by pressing Shift A. We're going to image and choose reference, and then we're going to locate our template image. It's right here in this folder, and zoom into the scene. First of all, this is too opaque as a template, so I'm clicking on this icon here and change the opacity to about 0. I need to turn opacity on 0.2. That is well enough, but it won't get in the way of the modeling later on. So how do we get the template in the right size? So if you go to the top left here, we have our measuring tool. So if you select that measuring tool, if you click here and then you drag up, you see that this is actually close to about a meter. You know, we set our scene units preferences to a metric. So one of these large boxes is a meter. So if we look at this car here, there's a measurement from the bottom of the tire to the top of the car that's about 1 meter and 84 centimeters. So that would mean we should get it to about, and it doesn't have to be precise, but approximate is good enough. So this is about 1 meter 85. So we're going to keep that in mind here, because when I'm going to selection here, this disappears. But what I'm going to do now is in the front view, we are looking down the y-axis. As you remember, as I mentioned, this is the front, this is going to be the back of the car, this is the right and the left side, or the driver's side is going to be on this side. So I'm going to click back or press 1 in order to go to the front view. You can also click on the Y icon here. Make sure that you have this heavy X or the plus X going to the right. We're going to select the template, and we are lining the bottom of the tires with the X-axis up and then move it approximately to the left. And then we're going to scale this up, but we're going to scale it from the center of the X of the origin, which we have our 3D cursor. If your 3D cursor is not at the origin, briefly press N, click on the view icon, and then set where it says 3D cursor, set all of the location measurements to 0 meters. So mine is at the origin at the 0x and 0y. And if you remember, we need to get this top of the car to approximately this height. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to choose 3D cursor as my pivot, and then I'm going to scale it up. And that is close enough. And then the next thing is I need to remember the scale parameters here. So I'm going to item, and I think we can leave it at that. So we have the front view, but we also want to be able to see the side view, the top view, and the back view. But there's a few settings that we need to do right now. First of all, I'm going back to selecting my texture icon for this. I don't want to see it in the perspective view, because when I turn it off I want to be able to see the model. But if I'm going to click on this icon to switch back to orthographic view, you see that this is now visible. Then we can also choose, and I think it was here, let me see what that is. Oh, it's up here. First of all, the depth of the image. We only want to see the front side. We don't want to see the back side. So I'm going to click on front here on the depth, and you would see when I go, it should be only showing this side. So I don't know what happened here. Oh, I had to uncheck both. So now we have it. So if I want to see the front view, I can see it here along the y-axis if I'm going to the front view, but when I rotate around it disappears, so it's not going to get in my way. So you basically want to check the depth to front and the side, that we only see the front side. So how do we get the side view? It's very easy. We're going to use this one. We duplicate it. Actually, we could probably, well, it doesn't matter. And then I'm rotating it to the side, and under the rotation, when you click the options window here, under item, you can type in under the rotation Z values 90. So if I'm going to the side view now, we have the side view, and I want to slide this along and that the front bumper lines up with the Z-axis. So I'm going to press G and the Y key, and it's not going to show here at my screencast at the bottom, so you have to just listen to what I say. So I'm going to move it over here. So now we have our front bumper lining up with our image here. By the way, we can actually, we're going to do that later. So what we need now is also the top view. So I'm going to duplicate the side view, and I'm going to rotate it around the y-axis. And if I look at my values here, what needs to stay is the 90 degrees, and I need to set my other two values to 0, the X and the Y rotation value. So if I'm going to the top view, now you see that we see the top of the car, except we need to line up the top view with the y-axis. So I'm going to press G and Y, except no, that's not true, G and X, to move it to the left. And there's a little bit of these templates are not necessarily all accurate, so we have to fudge a little bit. So going out of it. So the only other one we need to do is when we go to the back view, which is this view here, we don't see anything from the back, so we want to be able to see this part. So I'm going to take this image again, rotate it around the Z axis. I'm also pressing Z and type in 180. So now you see that we actually see the back here. So I'm going to click on the Y axis here, or you can press 1 and 90. But you see that this we need to now move up to the top here. Selecting this G and Z. We're moving up the Z axis to this one. So now we actually can see, I guess we lost our front view. So obviously I didn't get that duplicated. No problem. I'm going to duplicate that and press RZ180. So now we have actually the back and the front, but since I moved the back view up, we're going to have this not at the right position. So I'm going to, from the front view, so I'm looking down this axis, I'm going to have the front view selected, and let's rename that. I'm going to type front in. Have some typos here. And my caps lock is on. So front, that's good. Okay, so we need to move this down, G, pressing G and the Z, and moving that back down. So now you see that this is lining up, the side is lining up, the top is lining up, and the back is lining up. Now let's rename these quickly. This is our side. This is our top view. And this is our back view. So when we model our car, this can kind of get in the way. So what we need to do is, since we're going to look down the axis, when we see those, we can move these out of the place. So the side view, I'm going to move along the x-axis in that direction. So G, X, how far is up to you, but just a little bit further down so that it's not going to get in the way. The front view, as you see here, we're going to move to the back. So G and Y. The top view we want to move down, so G and Z. And then this back view we want to move toward the front, so G, Y, this way. So we got that lined up. So if I'm pressing on the front view, it's still there, it's not disappearing. If I press on the side view, it's right here, it's all there, and it's still lined up very nicely. So the next thing is that I want to move these to a separate collection that I can turn the visibility on and off. So I'm creating a new collection here by clicking on this icon, name it templates, and I'm grabbing all of my templates, not the lights, not the other things, and I'm going to move them into this template here. The other thing that I want to do is I want to make them that I don't accidentally select them. So under this filter here, I'm checking the selection indicator here. You see that these arrows are here, and I'm going to turn these off. So now I cannot accidentally select these templates and move them accidentally. So we can collapse that, and let's create a new collection for our car. I'm going to call that Citroen 400, and that's the one that we're going to build our model in. So before we start the modeling process, let's save our scene, and I'm going to save it as a Citroen -400 and then underline 01, because I want to save it into sequences. So let's start with the tire modeling. So I'm going to click on the x-axis, zoom in, and use the cursor in order to set or start with the tire. The tire is what we're going to start first. I'm going to press Shift and right mouse button. That will set the cursor where I want my tire to be created. Press Shift and A, and I'm going to add a cylinder to the scene. I'm going to expand my option box, and I'm going to set the align from world to view. Change the vertices to 16 and move the radius down to get the approximate size of the tire. And then I'm going to switch to the front view, so I'm going to click on the negative y-axis, and I'm pressing the S and the X key to scale the tire to the correct width. Press G and X to move it to the side, and then adjust the tire width to approximately that side. So I'm going to switch back to the X view, and I want to subdivide or make the tire a little bit more round and subdivide. So I'm moving out of the side view, press Tab to get into edit mode, switch to the edge selection mode, deselect first, press the Alt key and select the one outside edge loop, and then Shift Alt select the inside edge loop. But what we need to do first is we need to go out of edit mode into object mode again. Press Ctrl A to apply the rotation and the scale. So go back into edit mode, and I did that in order to, when I apply bevel, the resetting the scale will give us the correct bevel. So I'm just pressing Ctrl E, which opens up the edge options, choosing bevel edges, and just give the tire a little bit of a roundness. Deselect by pressing A twice. To switch to face selection mode, select the inside of the side of the tire, press on the X axis, and pressing I to inset, and press I and inset again. Then I'm going to move it a little bit out, press G and X to move the tire in. This is going to be part of our rim. Going back into the side view, pressing I again to inset, and one more time I to inset, and I'm going to pull this out by pressing G and X and pull the inside out. So this could be our tire. I like to probably insert one more edge loop, so I'm pressing Ctrl R, add an edge loop, and press G and X to move that a tiny bit more in. So this is going to be our tire. Later on we're going to apply some materials, but this is good enough for right now. So the next thing is we're going to build the car into two parts. The back part of it, which is kind of like a box, and then after that we will build the front part. So in modeling anything, you want to think about it in terms of what kind of primitive would work well to start this part. So if we look at this box, it's pretty much a square that's a tiny bit rounded at the top. So the ideal object to build that would be a box. So I'm going to set again somewhere in the middle of this box here my cursor, pressing the Shift key and right mouse button click, So that sets our cursor, and wherever our cursor is, that will be then also the area where we adding a primitive to it. So Shift. But first of all, before we do that, I need to go out of edit mode into object mode. So you can press the tab key or press the option box up here in order to switch to object mode. Press Shift A and add a cube. Scale it down a tiny bit, and press the tab key or switch back to edit mode. Press G to move the box. So we are pretty good with the length of our box. I'm going to switch to vertex mode, and I need to go into wireframe mode and to select all of the vertices that we have up there. So I'm pressing Shift Z. Let me switch here. I'm actually having my German keyboard shortcut. That's why that was kind of all wrong here. So Shift Z and select the top vertices, press G and Z to move down, and then I deselect, press my box selection tool and move the bottom vertices out. So you see that when we cut the tire out, the back part is going to be a little bit higher. So let's switch to the front view. So I'm going to press on this Y-axis again. What we're going to do is we actually only model one half of the car and use the mirror modifier to automatically add the other part to it. So we're going to add an edge loop here. Press Ctrl R and switch to face mode. Box select the left part of our cube that we created and delete that part. So I'm going to go out of wireframe mode for you guys so that you can see that. At this part, it would be good to reset our location and the scale and rotation values. So I'm going to press Ctrl A to apply all transforms. And you would see that it actually then put the origin of our object right to the center, which is going to be really important for any mirroring. So if I'm going to apply a mirror edit modifier, it will then automatically add the other part to the right side. So I'm going to go back to my front view, and for some reason, probably just because I applied the transformation, I lost my changes here. So I'm going back to edit mode, going to wireframe mode, which is Shift Z, box select these vertices on that side, press G and X and then adjust that side, and you see that it's automatically adjusting the other side. So in order to get this round part, we're gonna adjust or add some edge loops here. And as you can see, from the right side, this box fit neatly into this cutout, but here this is a little bit off. So we aren't gonna get too worried about it. Those little details don't really matter. So we're gonna add, let's start with maybe 2 or 3 edge loops. I'm gonna press Ctrl R and add 2 edge loops, and we only need to worry about the ones on the top. So I'm gonna box select the ones on the top, move them a tiny bit to the right. So deselect, select the ones on this side, press G and Z, and the last one, G and Z, a little bit further down to probably about here, I would think. Let's switch to the side view, and this is actually pretty good. Let's move that up a tiny bit so that it kind of lines up with that window, because we need to cut out that window in a second here. So I'm going to go out of edit mode. This looks pretty good. Maybe what we can do is we can select these two and just move them a tiny bit higher by GZ and just give it a little bit more of a rounded shape there. So good. Side view, and let's add some edge loops in that direction. So we're gonna have one here that we can line up with a window, another one, and I'm always pressing Ctrl R. Add this one, then we're gonna add one in this direction. And then we need to think about the cutouts of the tire here. On this side it already works pretty well, so we need about 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 edge loops. So let's move this one to this side, put one right in the middle, and then let's add another one here, another one here. So and then we need an edge loop along this side and then somewhere in the middle in between. So you will see in a second why this will help us. So actually the last one we don't need. So then we're going to grab this and this vertex, press G and Z to move these down, and then press these to move these down. And I think we can scale these together, so I'm going to press S and Y along these direction, and I think I'm going to move these up a tiny bit. So then on this side you can see that the body is a little bit higher. I'm just going to move this up to about here. So this gives us the layout. So let's see what the front looks like. So we can actually, if we want to see, this is the front, so we're going to press on this Y. We should be able to see our car from the back. And let me look at this. This actually shows like as if there is a little bit of a bend there, so this could go a little bit to the side here. I like to actually, so now we actually should line these up so that we get the windows. So I'm gonna move this up to this corner, move this up to this corner. So if you actually want to create some doors that open, that would be a way of doing it. So maybe here, GZ. So we could also, if we don't want to bother about the doors, then we can actually move these to the corners of the windows. That would be the other option. Maybe here. Maybe that's what we're going to do. Is I don't think we need that much detail. If you want the doors, you can frame the doors and then cut out the windows later. You should be able to do that. No, so I think that's fine. So good. So we can actually delete part of this. So that gives us the opening for the tire. And I don't think we need these parts here. So, okay. So I'm going to go back to my side view. I'm working in the face mode. I'm going to select this window, press I to insert, or inset rather, to about here. And I'm switching to vertex mode, and I'm just going to have these vertices selected and press Ctrl V, which opens up the vertex menu, and choose bevel vertices. So that looks pretty good. I think this window can be a little bit larger, so I'm going to scale that up. Then I'm going to press E for extrude and G and X to move that window in a tiny bit. So good. So let's go to the back view. I'm pressing on this part. Here we need to now add a edge loop, and then switch to face selection mode, select these two faces, press I to inset, and go back to vertex menu and just select the vertices at the edges here, Control V to open up the vertex menu and bevel those vertices, and then we can scale this up a tiny bit again to about this way, and then press E to extrude and G and Y to move those windows in. So that way we got our back box created, and then we would start with the front part of our Citroen. So now we're going to focus on the front part of the car. So I'm going to activate or go back to the side view, and here we have some interesting challenges. You know, we have a pretty straight front windshield, but then we see we have some curved top part and a curved bottom part. The fenders are relatively easy because they can be added at the end as an extra piece, so we need to focus on the front part. So what I decided to do at this part is first of all to hide the back part and start with the plane from the front here. So I'm going to go to the front view and click, or the cursor is actually in a pretty good position there. I'm going to press Shift A and choose plane, and I'm going to set that to view so that I see it from the front, squared to the front view. And in this case I can scale it down a tiny bit, go to press this, apply the scale, press tab to go into edit mode, and also add a central edge loop. Switch to face selection mode, select that side of the, or the left side of the plane, and delete it. Go back into object mode and choose a mirror modifier again. Go back into edit mode and switch to my vertex selection mode, and I'm going to bring this down to approximately the top of the windshield and the bottom to, I think, kind of where the fender comes down. That might create a line there where the bottom part of the chassis will end. So then you also see that the side, it's actually a pretty straight car with very curved body parts, which makes it kind of easy to model. But you see that these side panels are kind of in an angle. So I'm going to move this along the x-axis to the top part of the angle there and the bottom to kind of line it up to this part. So switching to the side view, we kind of cannot see that, and it might be, oh, here it is, okay. So select all, now we actually can see it. G, Y for moving it along the front. I'm going to line it up to where I think the top part of my windshield is deselected, grab the bottom part, press G and Y, and move that until it kind of lines up with the windshield. So here I would like to break it, and so I'm going to insert an edge loop, and I think I need to go back to my front view, and it might be somewhere here, but the I think that this is not really totally lining up with the side view. So Control R, bring in an edge loop to about here. Let's check. So that's weird. Let's see what happened there. I probably didn't get all of these selected here at the bottom. So I'm going to go back and GY and move this forward. So probably when I moved it, I only moved the outside vertices, not the one in the middle. So let's repeat that. I'm going to the front view, press Control R to insert an edge loop. It might be approximately, it's a little bit lower here, so I'm going to press G twice. And it's not going to show that in the screencast, but that slides the edge or the vertices up to this point here. I'm going to switch to a wireframe mode, deselect everything, and select this part and move that back, G, Y, to approximately there until it's vertical. Later on we will adjust wherever the doors, if we bother about that. I don't know if you want to add the door. You can do that as detailed as you like. So going back to the front view, as you can see, the body has 1, 2, 3 panels here. So we're gonna introduce or add 2 edge loops. So Control R, and I think they line up pretty nice. And then we are going to select in face mode these bottom panels here. So this is what we have right now. I'm going to press E for extrude, and then press G and Y to pull these body parts out. As you see, when we extrude it, we actually create a center panel we don't really want, and I don't really care about these at the bottom, so I'm going to delete these also. So I'm going to the side view, and what we could do is actually we could probably introduce an edge loop here in a second to bring that up a little bit. So let's do that. Deselect, and in vertex mode select these, and we can move these forward. G, Y. We can adjust that later. So we can actually move these up a tiny bit. So that's about good here. I'm gonna do another extrusion. So I'm gonna select these front panels again. Press E and G and Y. Again, I'm gonna delete these bottom and the inside or center panel. Go into side view and switch back to vertex mode. So I'm frequently switching back between vertex and face selection mode. Do you make sure that everything is deselected, and begin by pulling this down. So need to more extrusion. Press E and G and Y to about here. In vertex on wireframe mode, switch to vertex selection mode. GZ, pull that down. Let's do that one or two more times. E for extrusion, GY for pulling it out to approximately here. Select the top vertices, move these down, and then make one more extrusion at the end. Press E, GY, and maybe GY pulled it a tiny bit back. So we have the overall box in the side view, but we need to adjust it now from the front and the top view. But before we do that, let me delete the last parts of my front panel. So I'm going to switch to the top view, and you see that we are way off. So we need to begin by scaling these in. So I'm setting my cursor here to the center. So I'm pressing Shift S, cursor to selected. So I selected a vertex in the center, then I snapped my vertex there by pressing Shift S and choosing cursor to selected. And now we can start with this row here and setting our pivot to 3D cursor and press S and X and begin by moving these in. I think we can deselect that, press S and X again, and we want this line on the top lining up with this line here. This is okay. Press S, X one more time. We can leave the cursor there because we are not scaling in that direction, only in the X direction. So let me see, yeah, we got all of the cursors, S, X. So I'm beginning to pay attention to the innermost line here. That's working. Press S, X again. This one is lined up now. S, X. This one is aligned. This one is probably okay. So then we're gonna get to these here. S, X. Again, I'm paying attention to the innermost vertex or line here. Deselect that. Press S, X again. Now this one is aligned pretty well. And this actually looks pretty good too. So then these here, S, X. Deselect that. S, X. And then we work our way all the way to maybe we're gonna leave that and adjust these later on, and then we're just gonna do a color. So the last little bit probably needs a little bit adjustment. So let's see what that looks like. So what we are missing is a little bit of the curve. We got this, and we got the sideway or the x-axis well, we got the y or the z-axis well, but it looks still very boxy. So what I would suggest is let's start up here. By pressing G twice, I'm beginning to move these a little bit back to kind of imitate or indicate a little bit of a curvature there. I think this one too. So by pressing G twice, we just slide it along the edges and not into a particular direction. So then these are probably just the Y direction, because we want these to be flat. So let's see what that looks like. Here it looks like we have a little bit of an edge. So I'm going to go to the front view to check and see what that looks like. I actually want these to be lining up here, so I'm going to slide these down with this, because we cut that grill out. And I think what I need to do is actually I need to bring that in, and I need to bring that in a little bit. So what's that's going to look like? So we have a little bit of a too straight of a line in this direction. So as you can see, this is not quite correct. So we're going to go just in the Z direction. And probably what we do is maybe move these a tiny bit down and select these here. Make sure you select this one here at the end and this one too. We don't want to miss that. G and Z. I think we kind of missed this one at the very end. G, C. So I mean, we don't have to be super precise. We are just dealing with a really low poly model. And I think we get pretty close. I think that looks pretty good. We could just leave that. And I think this is actually needs to come up now. We got this a little bit wide because I like to do this cutout here. And actually the sides probably need to be up a tiny bit more. I think I moved them down a little bit too much. So let's bring these up too. So that's very good. Now let's complete the panel on the side here. So we are going to, well, let's do the top one first. So I'm just going to select these edges, go to the side view, and I'm going to extrude them and lining up. I'm going along this rim line here, bring that a little bit further, and then I'm selecting the inside edges here, GZ, to bring them up, and then the last one I'm probably just selecting the center vertex and slightly round that out. So that's the transition. So we need to insert 2 edge loops in order to imitate the curvature. So this is good, and then we just need to move these up. And I like to move them a little bit further to the front. Maybe I should do that here also. Just a really teensy tiny bit for these. So maybe we're gonna adjust that later. So now I'm going to select this edge and this edge, and I'm going to press E and then G, Z to extrude that out. Go to the side view, change my pivot to medium point and straighten that out along the Y-axis. So I'm going to press S Y. Do that about 3 times. G, Y to line that up. But now I need to switch to the top view. As you can see that that angle got too straight, so we're going to move that out to approximately here. And I think we can actually also do that with this part too. X. Yeah, good. I think that this, I like to snap this to this vertex here. So I'm going to press and snap these together. And why not even line that up with this line? So I'm going to do G, Z, G, Y, excuse me. And I think we might have gotten a tiny bit off there. GX, maybe bring that out a tiny bit. So, okay. Side view. So we're gonna actually let's add 2 edge loops here and snap these to this vertex, and do that here too. No, here, and the last one. So, and I like to add an edge loop here, so in order to bring the door forward, if we want to use that, move that up, and then I'm going to extend that by using the knife tool. Going to cut out this area here. And I'm just going to reconnect that here. I'm going to slide this to this part in case I want to create a door later. So I'm not sure if I will do that. So I need to separate this out. So I'm going to use my knife tool again. I think I'm going to kind of start here, go to here. I like to round it out a tiny bit and then connect with the knife this part. So and then in face mode, I'm going to select this part, extrude that, pressing E, G and X, and move that in a tiny bit. And then these edges at the bottom, you cannot see that really in the blueprint, but these are going up a tiny bit. It's kind of a curved opening vent on the side of the hood there. So, okay. So going to the side view, we actually see that this part needs to go a little bit higher to round the door out, so we can, and this one is actually a little bit lower, so I'm gonna slide this down to here with the knife tool. I'm actually creating the window, and from here to here, and I always like to connect it. I'm not that fond to leave areas more than 4 or 3 edges. Going to face mode, selecting that window, but here we actually need this vertex to line up. This is a pretty straight line. So back to selecting these, E, and then G and X. No, actually what we want is, that was wrong. Let's do that again. Insert E and then G and X. No, I forgot one more step. Inset, switch to vertex mode. I'm going to unselect all of these because I want to bevel this corner, and that corner. So Command or Control V, bevel vertex, so to about here. So now I'm gonna extrude G and X and have my side windows done. Good. Let's go to the front view. Use the knife tool again. I'm going to cut out a window here. And I like to connect these corners here because these create some really awkward polygons. So, and then I'm selecting these windows, inset, and I want to bevel just these two vertices, so Control V, bevel vertices, and here we want to connect this, but in order to do that we also need to cut along to extend that edge, and do that at the top too, and then we are dissolving these edges here, if you can see which one I'm showing here. Okay, pressing X, dissolve edges, then selecting these windows, press E to extrude G and Y, and we probably want to move it a tiny bit down, G, Z, and then select that center face, we don't want that, and delete that. So now we have our body really nicely laid out. Let's go to the front view and cut that grill out. So I'm going to go from here to here and then straight across. Select these three faces, press I to insert. Let's do that just a tiny bit. Here we have to do the same thing. We have to connect these inner lines. And then dissolve these edges. Then for the vertices, we want to bevel those vertices. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do two insets here. Actually, first let's just do an extrude out, E, G, and Y. So we're going to create the overall panel. Then we're going to do an inset, and here we're going to have the same thing again, where we actually have to connect these edges here. And then for the edge selection mode, dissolve these edges, and you probably see that we have an extra face here that we created. It's hard to see it, but it's right there at the end, so we want to delete that. And then just inset this part, so, or not inset, but extrude it to the inside like that, and then just delete this face. So I think that's good enough. So we are pretty close to being done. We need to create the fender. That's a really integral part of it. So switching to the top view, I'm selecting these edges here at the bottom. As you can see, switching to the top view, extrude them out, and basically then just grab the vertices and line it up. You know, this one needs to come out quite a bit. So, okay. One more extrusion out. Then we want to extrude this out. Rotate the edge. Extrude it out again. Rotate the edge and then extrude it out again. I think we want to maybe adjust the width of that bumper. And G and Z. So all of that is a little bit. So what we want to do is actually let's go from the side view. Let's actually extrude that up and bring the top line up also. So we have a really nice bumper there. And I don't think we need that edge loop here, so we can just dissolve that edge. Okay, good. So now we're going to model the fender, the light, the little door handles, the mirrors, the backlights, the little detail that gives it or make the model a little bit more interesting. Maybe we're going to even do the little flap here and maybe the little horns on the front bumper. So I might actually, after I did the fender, just not narrate it, because at that point you can probably figure it out by observing what I'm doing, and I might be speeding up the process. So let's focus on the fender. Going to the side view, and I'm going to set my cursor again by pressing Shift right mouse button. And since this is going to be part of this body, I'm going to add the plane in edit mode. That means it's going to be directly a part of this polygon object. So Shift A, plane, and we're going to look at it from the top or from the side. So I'm going to switch to the top view, and we'll add an edge loop here. Oh, this is actually not centered. It doesn't really matter. So we're gonna switch to, I don't know where. Oh, we have a, because we see that overlay there is because we already have a mirrored object there. So I'm going to line that side, the inside up here, with the end of that fender. I'm going to grab and take this part, and I'm going to move it a little bit in off that curvature here. So this, we're going to slide this way and probably line this up along the y-axis to make it straight. I think we're going to use this as the top part of our fender. This probably could be a little bit curved, maybe not quite that much. So let's look at it from the side. Probably going down a tiny bit, and then this we might just do it this way. Still go pretty straight. Selecting this edge here, so I'm going to extrude and just follow this curvature here. Straighten it out a little bit so that it will go with the line here. Extrude, and then one more time to about here. Do the back. So, and one more time. So that's pretty good. Let's check that from the top. So we can probably, what I would suggest is let's move this one and scale it along the y-axis in a tiny bit. Probably move it back. This too. You know, obviously this is not going to totally match up with the view. So and then we're going to select the outside edge, extrude it along the x-axis out, scale it down, and then form the side view. That actually looks already pretty good. So I'm going to press G and then I press Shift X. That means I can move it. G, Shift X. I can move it in any direction except the Z axis. So that kind of lets me balance that out. I think in what we want to do with this part here is slide it up a tiny bit to round that curvature out. And maybe bring that up a tiny bit too, and maybe move these up. Slide this edge up and this a tiny bit more. I think that's pretty good. So then in the front view, we're going to add the light. It's a square light for this particular model here. Setting my cursor, adding a cube, and obviously it's way too big. And I need to go into wireframe mode. Line it up, scale it down a tiny bit, scale it along the Z axis. It's more of a box. And let's go to the side view, move it to the front, deselect it. I'm going to select the back parts, move it closer and scale that down. Scale it along the Z axis a little bit more, and probably move the light a tiny bit down. So I think that's pretty good. I think what I like to do is selecting the back part of the fade, scale it down a tiny bit, insert an edge loop here, bring it to the back and scale it up. So then I like to select these outside edges and apply bevel, so Control E, bevel edges. So this is our light, and The center, we're going to do an inset because we're going to apply a different material for it. That's going to be like the light material. So we can add a connection to our light here by pressing A, Q, scale it down, scale it along the x-axis. It's a really small, maybe let's move it down a tiny bit. Move it in, maybe a little bit further down and back. So, okay. So, the little bumper horns. So here we have set my cursor here, add another cube, scale it along the x-axis, scale it along the z-axis, GZ to move it up. I think that's pretty good. So, and then I'm from the top view, I need to rotate it, move it in, and we look at that from the side. It's not quite, you see that it does not seem to really fit very well. So slide that edge to the front. I would probably scale that up a tiny bit. Let's scale it up along the x-axis. Scale X. And I think we got a little bit off here. So, and I would probably also select the top two edges and scale them a little bit more narrow. So I think that's pretty good. We can leave that. Let's do the mirrors. And they, on the side, from the side view, they are set right here. We're gonna start with the cube again. Scale it down, G, X, move it out, scale it along the x-axis. Go to the front view, and you can scale it down a tiny bit. Rotate it. So in wireframe mode, I'm deselecting everything, grab this outside of the mirror, move it up, rotate it a tiny bit, and scale it down a tiny bit more that it gets smaller. Extrude a part of it, scale that up, extrude another part of it, and scale that down. And then I'm going to set my cursor here and create another cube. That's going to be my mirror panel. So I'm deselecting the outside and I want to scale the other part and bring that in a tiny bit. And maybe I'm going to rotate that. And so, and deselect that, select that, scale that down a tiny bit, move it along the backs, the y-axis to the back, select the whole mirror. I think I want to rotate that, and as you can see we are kind of far off, so I'm going to grab these two, bring these into the mirror, and for some reason our mirror is way thicker, so scale that, and then I'll press S and then shift Shift X. It scales it in all directions except the X direction. I think that's good enough. And let's add a little door handle. Scale it along Z, and I like this part a little bit more narrow. Scale Z and scale this along the Y-axis, and then just move it into the door more, something like that. So we got that done. Now let's bring out the rest. The only thing we want to add to the back of our car is the little lights here. So I'm going to set my cursor there, and I'm going to add a cylinder with 8 vertices. Align it to the view, scale it down. Then let's go to the side view, scale it along the Y-axis. This is good enough, and I am going to duplicate that and move it down because it has 2 of those. And then I select all of these, and I'm going to join these because that's going to be part of the same body. So we're going to have the modeling almost done. The only thing we need is mirroring our tire, but what we need to do is we need to actually get our origin to the center. So I'm going to press Ctrl A to apply all transforms. Now we have the origin to the center, so if we apply a mirror modifier, it will add the tire to the right part, and then we do an Alt D to duplicate and move those tires to the back. So we are done with the modeling part. The next part is the applying the materials, and then we are done. So we are applying the materials now, so we can actually turn the templates off. We don't need that. I'm going to switch to perspective view. That looks a little bit nicer. I think we can be pretty proud of our little model there. So I think I'm going to move the wheel tires maybe a little bit further inward. But in order to do that and not set off our other tire, I'm going to go into the edit mode, select the tire, and then when I move it, and you see that it moved the other tire into. If you want to, you can add more things like the axles and stuff like that, but that shouldn't be that hard to do from this point forward. So we're going to switch to the shaded material editor or viewport. And we're going to start out with the basic red material. So I'm just going to start out by giving the car the same type of red material. So I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to name that red car body, and create a red color. Actually, it's going to be for the tires. Let's not do that. Let's that for the car here, and let's give it a deep red, something like that. Red car body. So, and we want this to be pretty shiny, and roughness we can lower a little bit, so it depends on how shiny you want it. So it's kind of up to you. So then let's go into edit mode, And let's create a new material. Oh, this is our window material. So we're going to add a material, click on new, and name this Windows. So this I would set like a pretty dark neutral color. I would make it the specularity high, and I would give it a metallic, pretty metallic look. And you don't see anything, so we need to select our window, select our Windows material and assign that. So I think that is pretty rough, that material, so we need to crank the roughness back down so it's pretty. Now you see it's really shiny, it looks more like glass. Then these two back, we want those as an emission material, so we're going to call create a new material up here, press new. I'm going to call these tail lights, and I'm going to change from the principal BSDF to an emission shader and give it a kind of an orange or red shine. So in order to apply that, we also need to select these and then select our taillights and press assign, and you see that they already look like that they are shining. We need to also give these our window material, so we got that. Let's get out of edit mode, select this car body, and here we don't have to create a new material. We can choose our red body material, and I almost feel like that maybe the shininess a little bit is too much, so I'm going to increase the roughness a tiny bit. So what do we have here? We have the window material, so we need to go into this part and then choose our here we got, we need to switch back and choose our red material. We need to actually add another material and then choose our window material. So we have to add that first, and then when we select it we can choose it from here. Did it wrong again. Need to select that and press assign. I probably confused you right now with this one. I always seem to do the same mistake here. Let's start from the beginning first in order to not confuse that. Let's start with choosing the right material. Then please select the windows, select the window material and assign that to the window. Then we select this material, select the window material and then assign that. So we got that. Good. I want to create, even though the Citroens didn't really have any chrome, but I'm going to use some chrome materials for the grille and for the mirror. I guess we would see. Let's create the headlight material first. So we need to create another new material that also needs to be an emission material. I'm going to call that Headlights, and we can make the color slightly off-white. Select our headlight, select the headlights material and apply that. I think what I'd rather do here for the chrome is maybe like a white body paint. So And let's add another material. Click new, call that white body paint. And that can be a little bit more specular, but maybe we're going to leave the roughness. And here we select this face loop here. So I'm in face selection mode, press the Alt key, click here, Shift Alt, click here, Shift Alt, click here, and then Shift select those parts. Choose the white body paint and press assign. And we're going to do the same for the mirror and the door handle. So this one, and the door handle. Assign. So the only thing that I like to do different is I like to give this a chrome material in the mirror. So we're going to choose another one or add another material, click new, call it chrome. So, and this one needs to be high specularity, with the metallic, and needs to completely be metallic, probably needs to be almost black, and let's see how that looks. So I'm going to assign that. It's going to be like the window material in some ways. So maybe we're going to lighten this up a tiny bit. Make it not quite that dark, so the base color, maybe this color. So okay, good. Let's get back to the tires. So here what we need to do is we need to go back to our wet body that we created initially in the beginning, but I want to rename it to tire material. Tire. Make it almost black, and leave the specularity, take the specularity pretty much out, roughness, increase the roughness, so that creates a pretty rough material. And then I like to probably just apply the white body paint. Well, maybe chrome would be interesting. So I'm going to add a new material, choose my chrome material, then in edit mode I'm going to add these parts to the body, and that should update it to all sides because we have duplicated the tires by choosing Alt D. And I like to maybe make the tire material a little bit more dark. So that should be all. Let's go into scene lights. I think that's looks pretty good. So this is our Citroen 400. I'm going to leave it up to you if you want to add more details, if you want to cut out the door, maybe give it tail lights or whatever. But this is basically all. I hope you had some fun.